Federal agents swarmed the streets of Minneapolis just weeks ago, sparking a chain reaction that's now paralyzed the nation's Homeland Security apparatus. The Department of Homeland Security officially entered a partial shutdown at midnight last night after Congress couldn't bridge the divide over funding tied to explosive immigration enforcement tactics. Over 260,000 DHS employees, from TSA screeners at airports to ICE officers on the border, are now either furloughed or working without pay, just as millions gear up for President's Day travel this weekend. This isn't some routine budget hiccup. It's the second funding lapse in as many weeks, zeroed in on the Trump administration's aggressive push to ramp up deportations amid what officials call a border crisis spiraling out of control. Democrats in Congress dug in their heels, demanding reforms like banning masks for ICE agents and halting raids at schools and churches, reforms triggered by two high-profile fatal shootings of U.S. citizens during enforcement operations in the Twin Cities. The Senate voted down both a full-year bill and a short-term extension 5-2 to 4-7 late Friday, with lawmakers scattering for a week-long recess that won't end until February 23 at the earliest. Picture this: masked federal agents bursting into apartment buildings and courthouses, rounding up undocumented immigrants but catching bystanders in the crossfire. In early January, Renee Nawaz, a 2-year-old American-born teacher of Palestinian descent, was killed during a raid in a Minneapolis suburb when agents mistook her for a target amid the chaos. Days later, 9-year-old U.S. citizen Alexi Ramirez, a college student protesting the operations, was shot dead by ICE personnel outside a federal building. Images of his body went viral, igniting fury across the country. Human rights lawyers who inspected the Whipple Federal Building reported immigrants denied access to counsel, squalid holding cells not meant for overnight stays, and a hidden floor at Manhattan's 26 Federal Plaza crammed with detainees. The backlash was swift and massive. Tens of thousands hit the streets nationwide on Friday, and over 300 anti-ICE protests from New York to San Francisco, Tucson to D.C. chanting "Abolish ICE" and "No ICE, no KKK, no fascist USA." In L.A., a student walkout turned ugly with a federal agent hospitalized after an attack, buildings vandalized, and traffic gridlocked downtown. Up in the Twin Cities, protesters blocked all entrances to federal buildings to stop transfers to detention centers, while a nationwide general strike shut down businesses in solidarity. Even celebrities got swept up. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon and journalist Georgia Fort were arrested on federal charges for covering a protest in a street. Paul Church charges, they say, target journalism, not disruption. President Trump responded by pulling 2,000 agents out of Minnesota after a car crash involving feds sent one person to the hospital and damaged vehicles, calling it a wrap on the local operation. But the damage was done. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey slammed the feds for sowing fear, disruption, and harm, while a federal judge rejected Minnesota's bid to curb the raids, handing Attorney General Pam Bondi a legal win. Democrats leveraged the outrage to tank the funding bill, with PBS NPR Marist polling showing 65% of Americans believe ICE has gone too far. Now, with DHS dark, the ripple effects are hitting hard. TSA lines could balloon at major airports during holiday travel. FEMA reimbursements for disaster aid are paused. Immigration benefits backlog immediately, and Coast Guard operations scale back. Essential personnel like Border Patrol and cybersecurity teams soldier on unpaid, but non-essentials go home raising alarms about national security gaps at a time when threats from abroad loom large. Secretary Kristi Noem held a presser yesterday on election security alongside the House-passed Save America Act mandating voter ID, but even that couldn't break the impasse. Travelers, brace yourselves. Experts warn of delays at checkpoints, frustrated passengers, and slowed processing for visas and green cards. Businesses reliant on immigrant labor face uncertainty as deportations grind to a partial halt, while activists celebrate it as a win against what they call a de facto dictatorship. House Republicans, fresh off passing H.R. 7006 for national security appropriations that cut $9.3 billion in waste and axe DEI programs, are fuming at the Senate holdup. Chairman Tom Cole called it steady progress toward fiscal discipline, but now it's all on ice. As the shutdown stretches into days, potentially 10 or more eyes turn to back-channel talks between the White House and Senate Dems. Majority Leader John Thune says members are on call for a quick vote if a deal emerges, but with President's Day looming and tempers flaring, resolution feels distant. This fight isn't just about dollars. It's a proxy war over the soul of America's immigration debate, with Minneapolis as ground zero. And as feds stand down unpaid, The question hangs, how long can the system hold before bigger cracks appear? Those cracks are widening fast as Wall Street grapples with fresh inflation data that's got investors on edge even as prices cool just a hair. Yesterday's Consumer Price Index report showed overall inflation ticking up 2.4% year over year in January, down from December's 2.7% and below the 2.5% economists expected, thanks mostly to cheaper gas and used cars pulling the numbers lower. Core inflation, stripping out food and energy, held steady at 2.5%, matching forecasts but still well above the Fed's 2% target. That's become the holy grail for rate cuts. Markets barely budged on the news. The S&P 500 closed flat after a choppy session, while the Dow eked out a tiny gain and NASDAQ futures hinted at a rebound overnight. But zoom out, and it's the worst week for stocks since May 2022. The NASDAQ down nearly 2% on the week, S&P and Dow off more than 1% each, as tariff jitters and budget shutdown fears overshadowed the softer print. 10-year Treasury yields plunged to 4.055%, their biggest weekly drop since August, signaling bets on more Fed easing, even if inflation's sticky. Economists like Matt Collier at Moody's say this: paired with strong jobs data, keeps the door open for rate cuts soon, but traders aren't holding their breath with Washington in chaos. Over on the policy front, President Trump's sweeping tariffs, the backbone of his economic reboot, are careening toward a Supreme Court showdown that could rewrite trade rules overnight. The justices fast-tracked Learning Resources v. Trump, after the administration invoked a 1,977 emergency law to slap duties on everything from Chinese tech to Mexican autos without Congress signing off. A coalition of businesses in 22 states sued, arguing it oversteps executive power and could force Uncle Sam to cough up over $100 billion in refunds if they win. Oral arguments wrapped last week, with a ruling eyed by late February or March. SCOTUS has opinions slated for February 20 amid the tariff wait. Trump calls it his most critical case ever, a make or break for protecting American jobs from what he terms unfair foreign competition. Lower courts split. Some block parts of the tariffs, others let them ride, sending it straight to the 9 justices who handed Trump wins on immigration and DEI cuts last year. Critics warn a green light here unlocks the emergency power spigot for everything from energy policy to defense spending, while backers say it's vital to counter China's dominance imports from there, already down 15% since tariffs bit. The stakes? Higher consumer prices short-term, but potentially millions of manufacturing gigs long-term if factories reshore. This tariff tussle collides head-on with cyber threats that have the national security crowd sounding alarms louder than ever. Just this week, CISA updated its alert on Brickstorm malware, a nasty PRC-linked tool that's burrowed into U.S. critical infrastructure like VMware servers at energy firms and defense contractors. Hackers from China's Hubei State Security Department via front company Wuhan XRZ have persisted since April 2024, snagging keys from Active Directory servers and lurking through September 2025 undetected. They hit the Naval Academy, War College's China Studies, White House staff, even Congress members' surveillance ops that spied on politicians, experts, and activists. Treasury slapped sanctions on Wuhan XRZ, hackers Zhao Guangzong and Ni Gaobin last year, but the group's still active, targeting defense industrial base players from Tennessee Aerospace to Alabama research outfits and Texas energy giants. FBI and Justice unsealed indictments. State offered rewards, UK piled on, yet APT-31 keeps probing, a persistent thorn per the latest intel assessment. Now, with DHS cyber teams furloughed in the shutdown, vulnerabilities spike. Fewer eyes on networks when America needs them most amid escalating great power rivalry. Layer on the Munich Security Conference wrapping today, where world leaders hashed out Ukraine aid packages and Indo-Pacific tensions. U.S. voices pushing for tougher China sanctions while Europe frets over energy dependence. Back home, the Pentagon's 2026 National Defense Strategy calls for radical shifts. More munitions stockpiles, AI defenses, hypersonic counters, all funded amid budget brinkmanship. House Republicans rammed through H.R. 7006 last month, slashing $9.3 billion in bloat and DEI while bolstering troop pay, but Senate Dems balked, tying it to DHS drama. Economists now pencil in 2026, growth juiced by tax cuts and deregulation, inflation dipping toward 2.4% if oil stays tame, but tariffs and cyber risks could derail it all. Fed watchers eye March for a quarter-point cut if data cooperates, but shutdown uncertainty means volatility ahead stocks could rally on soft landings or tank on trade wars reignited. For everyday folks, it means grocery bills easing slightly, but gadgets and cars pricier if tariffs stick, all while hackers lurk in the grid. And speaking of courts shaping the economic battlefield, SCOTUS is stacking Trump's plate with agency power fights that echo the tariff blockbuster. Next up, whether the president can fire Fed Governor Lisa Cook, a Democrat holdover challenging his nominees, potentially cracking the central bank's vaunted independence. Arguments hit January 21, but ripples already shaking monetary policy bets as yields yo-yo. Then birthright citizenship EO battles, where 22 states sued to block limits on automatic citizenship for kids of undocumented parents. Federal blocks appealed up, decision pending. Immigration raids got a lift, too. SCOTUS nixed injunctions on ICE ops accused of racial profiling, cleared National Guard deployments to back them up, and okayed ending humanitarian parole for thousands. Even a wrongful deportation case saw a Salvadoran returned only to face charges stateside. Consumer Product Safety Commission purges, NIH grant axes, all greenlit, tilting independent agencies toward executive sway. Critics cry power grab. The 6-3 conservative majority sees checks on bureaucracy run amok. As markets digest this brews shutdowns, crimping consumer confidence, tariffs testing trade limits, cyber foes probing weaknesses, the Fed's next moves loom large. Powell's crew held rates steady last meeting, but softer CPI whispers of cuts if jobs hold. Yet, with Trump eyeing Fed chairs loyal to his vision, 2026 could see policy whiplash unseen in decades. Investors, policymakers, everyday Americans, they're all watching, waiting to see if growth accelerates or inflation roars back amid the storm. That storm's fueling a political inferno ripping through Washington, where Justice Department probes into the old Russia collusion saga are peeling back layers of what insiders call a deep state hoax aimed straight at the heart of Trump's first term. Attorney General Pam Bondi greenlit a grand jury last summer to dig into former CIA Director John Brennan and ex-FBI Chief James Comey, probing whether they cooked intelligence to frame the president as a Russian asset back in 2016. Declassified docs from DNI Tulsi Gabbard blasted as a treasonous conspiracy pointing to Brennan's heavy hand in the intel assessment and Comey's crossfire hurricane rollout efforts that ODNI now says twisted influence ops into vote tampering myths. The probe ballooned. By fall, it roped in Biden-era FBI brass like Deputy Director Paul Abate for allegedly burying evidence of misconduct, with Ratcliffe referring Brennan for criminal lies to the Senate Intel Committee 7 years back. Fox broke the story July 8. DOJ confirmed no comment on active cases, and Gabbard pushed referrals hard, even purging CIA holdovers who stonewalled declass efforts. Comey's camp stays mum, but sources say prosecutors haven't looped him in yet. Brennan's testimonies pass statutes, but perjury angles linger if docs prove fibs. Trump hailed it as vindication, tweeting, "The witch hunt finally unmasked," while Dems cry retaliation to chill intel pros. This counterinvestigation syncs with midterms looming 8 months out, the 3rd of November, 2026, when all House seats and a third of the Senate flip, testing Trump's grip post-re-election sweep. House Dems like Hakeem Jeffries vow to block any steal, promising free and fair polls after Trump's warnings about fraud safeguards. Republicans riding high on SAVE Act voter ID mandates and election security cash in H.R. 7006 I supermajorities. Dems counter with turnout drives in blue cities still smoldering from ICE clashes. Polls show GOP up 5 on generic ballots fueled by economy jitters and border wins. But shutdown drags could flip swing districts. Street heat's turning bloody. 2 protests against ICE overreach morphed into riots scorching 2 0+ cities since January, with 1,200 arrests, 150 injuries, and $50 million in damage from torched cars to looted shops. ACLID trackers logged clashes in LA, Chicago, NYC, Atlanta, echoing 2020's playbook, but sparked by Minnesota shootings, where crowds torched precincts and hurled Molotovs at feds. National Guard rolled out in 21 states again, governors like California's Newsom blasting fascist raids, while Trump accuses anarchists of seditious plots punishable by death. Flashpoints pile up. Rep. Ilhan Omar doused with mystery liquid at a Minneapolis town hall January 27, sparking FBI hunts for the attacker amid Signal app busts for raid tip networks. 5 lawmakers plus Sen. Mark Kelly under DOJ fire for a viral video warning troops against illegal orders. DOD probing Kelly for court-martial. Hegseth pushing pension slashes. Trump-kin sued IRS for $10 billion over alleged tax leaks tying into Epstein file drops, where FBI docs cleared the financier of elite trafficking rings, though seized tapes showed child abuse pics he grabbed online. Social media supercharges it all. Viral clips of Fed shootouts draw crowds in minutes. Counter-protests, spark brawls, economic gripes over tariffs blend with migrant fury. Higher ed's reeling campuses and protest hot zones shift remote. Faculty eye safer gigs as windows shatter and classes cancel. Just Security tallies 552 Trump admin suits, 153 injunctions holding policies, but 113 wins cementing executive muscle on everything from DEI firings to border walls. Midterm math gets brutal. Dems need 3 seats for House control, 6 for Senate, tough with gerrymanders favoring GOP, and turnout low among youth alienated by chaos. Trump barnstorms, Rust Belt, pitching tax cuts, juicing growth despite tariffs, hiking gadget costs. Whites love it, per polls. But urban minorities mobilize hard. Jeffries tells crowds Dems will stop the steal, but GOP retorts with fraud-proof laws post-2024 audits. Probes deepen the divide. Bondi's strike force eyes. Clapper 2. D-class drops framing Russia hoax as Clinton op via Steele dossier. FISA abuses. Carter Page warrants now under microscope. Brennan's purge stalled it briefly, but grand jury rolls on. Potential indictments pre-midterms. A political earthquake. Meanwhile, streets simmer. Minneapolis 3rd Precinct echoes in fresh precinct sieges. Insurance hits billions as insurers hike urban premiums. Lawmakers like Fetterman warn shutdowns breed shutdowns in voter trust. Pennsylvania Dem predicting doom if DHS impasse lingers past recess. Trump's EO reaffirmed Iran emergency February 5, yanking from global pacts, sinking domestic crackdowns with foreign hawkishness. Protests chant, no ICE, no war, linking raids to carrier deployments. USS Gerald R. Ford headed Middle East soon. Trump betting talks tame Tehran, but preps strike options. As batons swing and subpoenas fly, 2026 hinges on turnout. Will rage propel Dems or backlash boost Trump allies? With Epstein echoes fading into probe noise and Omar scares stoking base fears, the nation's pulse races toward November fueled by probes promising justice or purge, protests demanding change or crackdown. One thing's clear. This political pot's boiling over, and the lid's about to blow. The lid blowing off domestic fires has sent shockwaves abroad, where Trump's America First blitz from Venezuela takedowns to Greenland grabs is redrawing global maps and rattling alliances from Beijing to Brussels. January kicked off with U.S. Special forces storming Caracas, snatching dictator Nicolás Maduro in a pre-dawn raid that White House called a hosting ground for foreign adversaries like Russia and China. Maduro's ousted, detained at Gitmo pending extradition on narco-terror charges. Interim Pres Juan Guaido II sworn in with U.S. backing, oil fields secured by 5,000 Marines. Critics warn it greenlights Putin's Ukraine plays and Xi's Taiwan stares, but Trump frames it as Monroe Doctrine, 2 hemisphere ours, no commie footholds. Russia and China howled foul. Putin slapped sanctions, yanked diplomats. Xi hosted Maduro envoys, hinted South China Sea reprisals. Yet Trump's peace push in Ukraine tempts Moscow, conceding no NATO, pre-2014 borders for ceasefire, per NSC updates prioritizing strategic stability over endless aid. Hegseth at Davos. Europe foots more bill, U.S. pivots Pacific China, the peer foe with homeland intent, Kyiv balks, Zelensky jets, D.C. begging $61 billion more, but House GOP ties it to border wall cash shutdown, stalls the check. Iran's the powder keg now. Trump threatens strikes over protest crackdowns, killing 1,500 nukes, nearing breakout. Pentagon surges USS Dwight D. Eisenhower carrier, 3,000 troops, F-35S destroyers for weeks-long ops if talks tank. B-2S on alert stateside, THAAD batteries shielding Gulf allies, diplomats huddle Oman, but Tehran missiles 11 nations in range, retaliation scripted. Trump to troops Friday, fear gets it done, agreement tough, all options live. U.S. hit 3-0, plus ISIS spots Syria today, CENTCOM confirming message to mullahs amid Houthi Red Sea hit sinking tankers. Greenland's next chess move. Trump revives buyout, eyes bases versus Russian Arctic subs. Chinese mining military option floated if Denmark balks. NATO strains. Trump demands 5% GDP hikes or bye-bye Article 5. Europe scrambles Munich confab, Hegseth preaching burden, share as U.S. exits 66 orgs like WHO, UNESCO per EOS. NDS spells it, Homeland First, China deter via strength, industrial-based supercharged Golden Dome missile shield, drone counters, nuke mods, top list. China watches warily. October, truce eased semi-bans. Xi Trump Beijing summit April. But Taiwan drills ramp. Jiwu's Maduro holdouts. Tech war escalates Huawei CFO Meng back home, but ByteDance TikTok ban sticks January 19, 170 million users migrating amid antitrust suits. Pentagon flags, PRC Brickstorm hacks on grids, Navy eyes 400, ship fleet to choke Malacca Strait if hot. Healthcare's AI revolution charges ahead. Mayo Clinic dropping billion plus on 200 projects from radiology co-pilots, spotting cancers 20% faster to RPM, slashing heart failure readmits 50%, Epic, Oracle bake LLMs into EHRs for ambient notes, prior auth bots, Viz.ai triages strokes in minutes, Tempus Onc AI personalizes chemo, CMS fast-tracks codes for AI preventive screens, chronic monitors payers like Optum automate claims, cutting denials 30%. Startups snag digital health cash Lions share, valuations up 63%, Series D+. Microsoft Nuance DAX, Scribes Docs, Google Med, Palm Drugs anew. Remote monitoring booms. Bioformus AI flags cobbed flares. Wiza bots mental health check-ins. Corporate platforms fuse data for pop health bets. FDA clears 1,000 imaging AIs, but ethics probes loom on bias. Black patients underserved in trials. Hospitals embed. G Siemens AI scans throughput double. Revenue cycles hum via Akasa coders. Investors bet 2026 ROI on outcomes, not hype readmits down proves payback. Back to battlefields. Venezuela stabilized. Citgo refineries pump for U.S., but cartels regroup Andes. Russia probes borders. China mines rare earths despite tariffs. Ukraine talks Geneva next week. Putin-Trump hotline hot. Iran proxies Hezbollah Houthis test resolve. USS Carney downed 10 drones last month. NDS eyes Western Hemisphere pivot. Mexico border forts Cuba thaw probes. Tech Health Nexus. AI defenses versus prick-hack shield. Mayo data troves. Pentagon contracts Tempest for vet PTSD bots. Trump's NSS calls foreign foes top threat. Russia hybrid ops. China economic war. Iran nukes. Alliances, transactional deals, or done. As carriers steam, AI docs diagnose. Greenland glints 2026's foreign script flips from Biden multilateral mush to Trump dealmaker muscle. Risk sky. Miscalc Iran sparks Gulf oil spike to $120. Ukraine cave emboldens Taiwan run. Winds beckon, stable hemisphere, tamed Ayatollahs, AI curing what bombs can't. But with DHS dark, homefront wobbles, feed foe opportunism, global chessboard tilts America's way if players don't blink. Players blinking or not, Mother Nature's already dealt a brutal hand this winter with a mega cold wave gripping North America since New Year's and winter storm, January 23 to 27, dumping feet of snow. Iche and misery across 2/3 of the lower 48. Temps plunged to minus 50 inches Montana, minus 40 inches Dakotas, wind chills shattering records from Rockies to Appalachians, over 300 million under alerts at peak, half the nation blanketed white by January 26. Power snapped for 1.3 million at worst. Texas grids teetered again. Louisiana iced over with 9 dead from hypothermia and CO leaks. Tennessee crashes claimed 5, including an 1-year-old. North Carolina tallied 400 plus wrecks, I-26 and I-85 shut. Virginia Dulles buried under 7 inches, I-95 express lanes closed. New York City dug out 20 inches. Northeast flights axed 11,000 Sunday alone, another 3,800 Monday travelers stranded nationwide. FEMA aid flowing now, but DHS shutdown freezes reimbursement. States fronting billions for plows, shelters, generators amid 50 plus fatalities tallied so far. California dodged the freeze, but braced January rains, swelling rivers, mudslide risks in burn scars, polar vortex redux testing, resilience post, 2025 blazes, crimes spiking in shadows of chaos, D.C. Metro violent offenses up 40% year over year, 3 cops shot serving warrant yesterday, suspect barricaded hours, kids evacuated, drugs suspected. Kansas City Super Bowl parade victory lap turned slaughterhouse Wednesday. 1 dead, 2-0, plus shot near Union Station amid million revelers, 3 detained, fans tackled shooter. Travis Kelce seen haunting, not terror, cops say criminal beef, but echoes July, 4 horrors, large crowds, magnets for mayhem, snipers, rooftops now norm. Nationwide gangs ramp. Memphis jury nailed final 2 unknown vice lords in racketeering murders, feds touting blow to street terror. Zizian's migrant crew fights charges a year post-border agent kill, 7 indicted across states for smuggling hits. FBI warns protest violence morphing organized crime. ICE raids disrupting cartels, but shutdown halts ops. Schools stagger. Winter closures piled atop protests. Now Title VI. Crackdowns torch DEI. Trump due probes 500 districts for race, sex bias, yanking funds from woke curricula. Parental rights surge. First Amendment suits flood courts. Oklahoma Jewish charter pushes religious publics. Post-Catholic flop. SCOTUS watches. Literacy cliff hits middle school pandemic K. 3 kids now 8th graders, 70% below proficient. States flat since 22. NWEA pushes targeted reads. ESAs explode. Red states tap federal tax credit scholarships for 2027. Tutoring boom. Private swell skills over seats. AI tutors displace jobs. Poverty ignored. Feds gut safety nets. Community orgs scramble sans funds. Innovation stalls without basics. Christensen flags blind spots. Choice cash floods, but equity lags. Workforce AI eats entry gigs. Sports distract the din. NFL reigns but twists AI analysis. Mental health spotlights global games. Chiefs repeat Super Bowl glory shattered by parade blood. WNBA, NWSL explode. Women's stars bag deals. Gen Z hooks. NBA player power trades viral. Betting booms. VR views. Social clips. Stadium skip. TikTok moments drive discourse. Culture wars simmer. Entertainment pivots. AI scripts. Health bots. Ed trend skills. First amid literacy lags. Winter woes linger. Cold snaps forecast Midwest. FEMA begs Congress unlock. DHS cash shutdowns. Compound disasters. Crime fills voids. Schools reinvent. From frozen freeways to parade pandemonium, classroom clashes to sports surges, America's weaving peril and progress. Cold claims lives, crooks exploit cracks, but resilience shines. Plows grind, juries convict, kids learn anew. Midterms, markets, mullahs loom, yet Heartland endures, shutdowns end, probes pierce, alliances arm. Nations tested, tempered, turning page on tumult toward tomorrow's tests.